While Sydney and Melbourne investors are fighting over scraps, Hobart has quietly tightened up. We're seeing vacancy rates sub 1%, and most importantly, I've found 5 suburbs under $700,000 that aren't just cheap, they are growing. We're talking about markets that have clocked over 5% growth in the last 12 months, while everyone else was looking away. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PropSpotter, the smarter way home. We help you invest in property, translate data, and make the right decision on your property investing journey. You can check out more about us on our website, propspotter.com.au. I'm your host, Sean, and if you're new here, we do things a little differently. We don't do hype, we don't do gut feelings, and we do data. We look at the numbers the mainstream media ignores to find the warm spots before they boil over. Today, we're crossing the Bass Strait. We are talking about the Apple Isle. We are talking Hobart. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Hobart had its boom, didn't it? Is the party over? If you listen to the mainstream news, yes, the party is over. But if you listen to the data, you'll realize the market has just taken a breath, reset, and is now offering some of the best yield plus growth plays in the country. While Sydney and Melbourne investors are fighting over scraps, Hobart has quietly tightened up. We're seeing vacancy rates sub 1%. We're seeing yields that actually pay the mortgage. And most importantly, I've found 5 suburbs under $700,000 that aren't just cheap, they are growing. We're talking about markets that have clocked over 5% growth in the last 12 months, while everyone else was looking away. We've got a gentrifying coastal pocket, a northern powerhouse, and an infrastructure play that involves nearly $1 billion of government spending. Before we drop the list, let's set the scene. Buying in Hobart is different from buying on the mainland. In Melbourne or Sydney, $700,000 gets you an apartment or a house 50 kilometers from the CBD. In Hobart, $700,000 gets you a house with land, a view of a mountain, a view of a water, often within 20 minutes of the CBD. The criteria for today, houses where prices are strictly under $700,000 median. We want a proof of life when it comes to performance. We're looking at over 5% capital growth in the last year, at least. And the squeeze, we want low vacancy rates. Hobart is famous for its rental crisis, and as investors, that demand is our safety net. We aren't looking for retirement villages. We're looking for working class growth corridors where incomes are rising and infrastructure is being built. With that said, let's get to suburb number 1. Suburb 1, Rokeby. It's the absolute star performer of the last 12 months. It's on the Eastern Shore. If you looked at Rokeby 10 years ago, you wouldn't touch it. Today, it's the face of gentrification. Median house price, roughly $667,000. Growth, massive. We're putting it at 9% growth over the last 12 months. And vacancy rates, tighter than a drum. Sub 1.5%. Rokeby is transforming in front of our eyes. You have the new Glebe Hill Village shopping centre nearby, which has been a game changer for amenities. You have new subdivisions bringing in modern housing stock, which lifts the value of the older stock. For $650,000, you are getting a modern or renovated family home. It's 15 to 20 minutes from the CBD, near the beaches of the South Arm, and it's significantly cheaper than neighbouring Howrah or Tranmere. That ripple effect has hit Rokeby hard, and the prices are responding. Examples of recently sold properties: 34 Luckman Place, Rokeby, 3-bed, 1-bath on 650 square meters, sold for $551,000 on 19th of January. 1 Duntroon Court, Rokeby, a 4-bed, 1-bath on 820 square meters, sold for $595,000 on the 9th of January. And 17 Free Street, Rokeby, a 3-bed, 1-bath on 687 square meters, sold for $535,000 on the 25th of November. Next up, we're crossing the bridge to the northern suburbs, West Moonah. This is the cool cousin of the north. Price point, its median's currently sitting at $690,000. Growth, a very strong 7.5% over the last 12 months, and vacancy rate of 1.4%, trending downwards. Here is the play. Young professionals got priced out of North Hobart. Then they got priced out of Lenah Valley. So where to next? West Moonah. It has the elevation. It has the views of the Derwent River. It has the character homes, mid-century weatherboards that people love to renovate. You are buying a lifestyle asset here for under $700,000 that will cost you $1.2 million in a comparable part of Melbourne. That rental demand here is fierce because it's so close to the city, but also close to the amenities of surrounding suburbs like Glenorchy. Here are 3 examples from the last few months. Number 1, 15 Atherton Avenue, West Moonah, 4-bed, 1-bath, sold for $700 flat. 64 Ashburn Avenue, West Moonah, 3-bed, 1-bath, also sold for $700 flat. Number 3, 27 Cheviot Road, West Moonah, 2-bed, 1-bath, slightly different, sold for $540,000. Suburb number 3, and my personal favorite, just down the road from West Moonah, we've got the engine room of the north, Glenorchy. This is the commercial hub. It's not just a suburb, it's a satellite city with its own CBD. The median house price in Glenorchy is sitting at $625,000, and we're seeing a 8.1% growth in the last 12 months for houses. The vacancy rate in Glenorchy is the real surprise, sitting at 0.5%. People are fighting for houses in Glenorchy. Glenorchy is the safe pair of hands. You have the shopping centres, the cinemas, the bus interchange, and the light industrial employment zones. Investors love it because the tenants are sticky. They work locally. For $650,000, you are picking up a solid brick home on a flat block. With a 0.4% vacancy rate, you will never have an empty property. It's cash flow and a growth hybrid that just makes sense. Here are 3 examples from the last few months of solds in Glenorchy. Number 1, 135 Tolosa Street, Glenorchy. 4-bed, 2-bath on 820 square meters, sold for $685,000. Number 2, 62 Pitcairn Street, Glenorchy. 3-bed, 1-bath on 642 square meters, sold for $600,000. And number 3, 4 Binia Street, Glenorchy. 3-bed, 1-bath on 637 square meters, sold for $650,000. Suburb number 4, a controversial one, yet another one of my personal favorites, Bridgewater. We're replacing that coastal play with a massive infrastructure one. Some people turn up their nose at Bridgewater. Smart investors look at the government spending. The data. The houses there have incredible value with a median of just $458,000. The growth has surged 7% in the last year and is growing even faster as affordability bites. You are looking at 5% plus yields as well in Bridgewater. Why Bridgewater? Let me put it for you this way. Bridge over the water. The bridge over the water on Bridgewater is the largest transport infrastructure project Tasmania has ever undertaken. A $786 million spend that was just finished last month. When the government dumps $750 million into a suburb, you pay attention. This is improving connectivity. It's creating jobs, and it's beautifying the foreshore. You can buy a freehold house here for under $500,000, get a massive yield, and ride that capital growth wave that comes when the major infrastructure finally sets in. This is the definition of buying before the ribbon is cut. The suburb is gentrifying, and it's in the early days of doing so. New shopping centres, cafes, it's happening out in Bridgewater. Examples of recently solds in Bridgewater. 2 Finlay Street, Bridgewater. 3-bed, 1-bath on 630 square meters of land, sold for $570,000. Number 2, 37 Finlay Street, Bridgewater. 3-bed, 1-bath on 650 square meters, sold for $530,000. And last but not least, 1 Walker Crescent, Bridgewater, 3-bed, 1-bath on 680 square meters, sold for $525,000. Now, we come to the last suburb of the list. So to round out the list, we have our second budget beast, Risdon Vale. Do not judge a book by its cover. The numbers here are undeniable. The median house price of Risdon Vale is sitting at a comfortable $458,000. It's had a 6% growth in the past year, and the vacancy is practically non-existent at 0.71%. Risdon Vale is one of the most affordable suburbs within a 15-minute drive of a capital city CBD anywhere in Australia. Let that sink in. It was ex-government housing, but it's rapidly moving into private hands. First home buyers are flocking here because it's the only place they can buy a freestanding house under $500,000 near the city. That demand from owner-occupiers drives up prices. If you want high yield and high growth potential from a low entry point, Risdon Vale is the twin pillar to Bridgewater. Some examples of recently solds: number 1, 11 Wilga Road, Risdon Vale. 3-bed, 1-bath, sold for $476,000. Number 2, 55 Sycamore Road, Risdon Vale. 3-bed, 1-bath, sold for $540,000. And number 3, 3 Carrier Road, Risdon Vale. 3-bed, 1-bath, sold for $455,000. So there it is, your Hobart hit list: Rokeby, West Moonah, Glenorchy, Bridgewater, and Risdon Vale. Hobart isn't dead. In fact, if you look at the vacancy rates and the supply constraints, it's one of the tightest markets in Australia. Do your due diligence, check the numbers, and don't be afraid to look where others aren't. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into Tasmania, smash that like button and subscribe to PropSpotter. We're bringing you the data the news won't show you. I'm Sean, happy hunting, and I'll catch you in the next one.